Tonight, the Fed's dirty work. The effect of more interest rate hikes on the economy, with the Federal Reserve stuck between record-high inflation and a stagnating stock market. And as the gun debate bristles,
guns have now become the leading cause of death for children in America.
Protecting children from gun violence with a bipartisan deal on the line. Plus, the Trump effect in the 2022 midterms. And the high-tech battle between the United States and China.
Now is the time to begin to pivot and change that curve.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The Fed hammers away to fight inflation. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And good evening in Washington, D.C. I'm Jenna Browder. We begin with the biggest interest rate hike in decades. This afternoon, the Federal Reserve raising the cost of borrowing by almost 3/4 of a point.
The move is an attempt to bring down record high inflation as many Americans struggle to keep up and with growing fear about where the economy is headed. For more on the planned hikes, here's CBN senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener. Tara.
John and Jenna, this is the Fed's third rate hike this year. And even if it slows inflation, there is concern it could trigger a recession. This is families struggle from coast to coast.
From groceries to gas, skyrocketing prices on just about everything, busting budgets around the country.
Got 3 kids, 2 teenagers and a young one, so anything helps. We barely make it, and I get paid pretty good at my job.
Americans are now spending about $350 more every month for the same goods and services as last year. Gas is 50% higher, groceries up nearly 12%, rents up by 26%, leaving many unable to pay the bills.
I'm looking for a part-time job at 75.
According to the Labor Department, producer prices rose almost 11% in May.
This inflation is very painful and it has to come down. So the only way of doing that is getting those interest rates up and slowing the growth rate in the economy.
Experts say that means the cost of credit cards, car loans, and mortgages will rise even more. Many are already dipping into savings to get by.
A lot of people unfortunately are using their credit cards and those are getting maxed out, and especially with higher rates, those interest rates are outrageous right now. So there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the economy.
In Philadelphia Tuesday, President Biden dismissed criticism that his spending policies, including pandemic stimulus money, are responsible.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
And as for retirement funds, there is more sticker shock there. The S&P 500 index, tied to so many 401k accounts, is in bear market territory now. It fell yesterday. That's down 20% from a recent high. And John and Jenna, experts say there's probably no improvement anytime soon.
All right, senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener. Thanks, Tara. Turning now to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are still looking for ways to address gun violence. The Senate today held a hearing on how shootings impact young children.
It all comes as a bipartisan group of senators continues to discuss gun reform measures. But lawmakers say there is still work to do. The CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka is here with more on that. Matt?
Well, the 20 Democrat and Republican senators who agreed to a framework deal on gun reforms hope to have something voted on before their July 4th recess. That might be a long shot now, as there are still sticking points to iron out. Police officers, mental health professionals, and family members of victims shared their perspective on how the country's gun problem is hurting kids in the wake of the Uvalde shooting. Phoenix, Arizona Police Chief Jerry Williams pushed for new legislation banning certain types of weapons in order to keep officers safe.
We're outgunned, we're outmanned, we're outstaffed. We do need responsible gun legislation. We do believe that there should be a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in order for us to properly serve and protect our community.
Max Schachter, whose son Alex was murdered in the Parkland, Florida mass shooting, advocated for his bill codifying school safety best practices into law.
Schools need help. Most educators become educators because they want to teach and they want to help children, not because they want to be school security experts.
And other witnesses testified about the urgent need for better mental health responses for young people.
Schools are not where most of our kids are dying. The vast majority of juvenile gun deaths are out-of-school suicides and homicides, neither of which receives nearly as much attention. And suggesting that the problem is simply guns does everyone a disservice. The problem is deeper.
The complex problems are all part of the gun reform package senators are trying to put together. Texas Republican John Cornyn helped lead negotiations, but said he's concerned about some issues related to red flag laws and taking guns away from domestic abusers. His Democratic counterpart, Chris Murphy, remained optimistic they could get a deal in writing soon.
I have continued confidence that we can write that framework into text, and we can have that before our colleagues next week.
The hearing went on while Attorney General Merrick Garland met with victims at the site of the Buffalo mass shooting. The Justice Department moved to charge the suspect in that shooting with hate crimes.
No one in this country should have to live in fear that they will go to work or shop at a grocery store and will be attacked by someone who hates them because of the color of their skin.
The suspect in the Buffalo shooting could face the death penalty if convicted. Meanwhile, for senators on Capitol Hill, if there is no bill in writing by next week, it's unlikely anything would pass before that July 4th break. Guys?
All right, thanks, Matt. Well, we are certainly in an election cycle, and the GOP scored some huge wins in the upcoming midterms, claiming a House seat from Democrats as several Trump-endorsed candidates win their primary races, not to mention the ousting of one Republican who voted to impeach former President Trump.
Yeah, highlighting his role in the Republican primaries. Matt is doing double duty for us tonight and has a look at the former president's impact on these races.
The primary wins and the losses are starting to add up for former President Donald Trump. And while his word still goes very far in the Republican Party, his king-making ability might not be as ironclad this primary season.
You're going to send Dr. Oz to fight for you in the U.S. Senate? I want to pick somebody that's going to win, and this man is going to win. Come on up, Jake. There is no rhino in America who has thrown in her lot with the radical left more than Liz Cheney. Terrible. She has gone crazy.
The former president has not shied away from weighing in on some of the country's most pivotal races. And the question over how much influence he still brings to the table continues to be thoroughly dissected. One clear conclusion is that although Trump's blessing hasn't led to automatic wins, that doesn't mean it's not helpful. Trump picked up a big win early in the primary season with his endorsement of Ohio Senate candidate J.D. Vance. Vance was floundering in a crowded GOP field before Trump's welcome involvement likely carried Vance across the finish line for the primary win.
I've absolutely got to thank the 45th, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Come November, the Ohio race will be seen as highly significant because the winner could go a long way towards determining control of the Senate chamber on Capitol Hill. He picked up more wins in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Georgia with Senate candidates he endorsed, but Pennsylvania's high-profile race put his influence to the test. Trump's backing of doctor-turned-television celebrity Mehmet Oz in the Pennsylvania Senate primary drew some criticism from voters.
I really think he's getting some bad information on that.
It's too Hollywood. I don't trust it. I could never know enough about him realistically to know if that is who I would want to vote for. I couldn't do it.
Oz found himself locked in a dead heat with opponent David McCormick. It led to a recount lasting into June, with McCormick eventually conceding. Then came a deja vu moment when the former president saw a repeat of 2020 defeat in Georgia. Trump backed challengers to incumbents Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Political observers saw those endorsements as revenge plays, since both Kemp and Raffensperger went against Trump's calls to challenge Joe Biden's 2020 win in the state. After both won their primaries against Trump's preferred candidates, Cole Musio, the president of the Frontline Policy Council, saw it as a move-on moment for Georgia voters.
All we're talking about is yesterday. We're losing the fight today, and we're certainly going to lose it tomorrow.
And so we've got to focus on principles. We got to get back to that space. And look, Donald Trump is still a very popular figure in the Republican Party and the conservative movement. He had a great 4 years. But I think the people around this country and the conservative movement are looking and saying, look, we can appreciate him without being obedient to him.
Still, Trump has more wins than losses, and that record is definitely important for the former president, according to CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody.
He does care about the win-loss record for sure. But let's make no mistake. I mean, Donald Trump is powerful within the Republican Party. There's not even a question about that. And this has nothing to do with any sort of staying power in 2024. In other words, for people to interpret these results and say, well, wait a minute, maybe his election 2020 stuff isn't going to quite work in 2024. I mean, that's hogwash.
More primaries remain as the midterm elections approach in November, with the former president expected to play a big role down the stretch.
What I'm seeing is that Trump's popularity within the Republican Party isn't easily transferable to other candidates. I think President Trump himself is still popular, and voters are thankful for various things that he has done or continues to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Republican voters are looking to Trump to tell them exactly what they should do and who they should vote for in every race.
It's worth keeping tabs on how many of Trump's candidates voters are supporting, because it could indicate how much support he has as the former president potentially eyes another bid at the White House. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
And joining us now is Tim Head, Executive Director of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. Tim, welcome. Good to see you this evening. The Faith and Freedom's Road to Majority 2022 kicks off tomorrow. Of course, Donald Trump is the big headliner. He's supposed to speak this weekend. How big is the Trump effect in this year's midterms, Tim?
Well, it's certainly alive and well. I think one thing a lot of people may miss on the endorsement question is it's not necessarily specifically to Trump. The reality is for decades, Republicans and conservatives kind of take endorsements under advisement, but they don't necessarily just kind of get in line and comply. So you're going to see kind of mixed results because all of these candidates are different in Alabama, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and elsewhere.
Tim, there was a postponement of Part 3 of the ongoing January 6 hearings today. Part of the narrative, as you well know, is the rise of Christian nationalism and the role it played in the riot and the breaching of the Capitol. We'd love to get your perspective on this. Are you concerned about the growing talk of Christian nationalism within the GOP?
Well, I think that that conversation has been happening for, certainly since January the 6th, but frankly, some fringe folks were wanting to kind of thrust that onto Christians, even back into going back to, events in Virginia 3 and 4 years ago. So the conversation is honestly, in my opinion, has grown a little bit stale. The fact of the matter is that most evangelical Christians and Catholics across the country are compassionate, loving people, very accepting and inclusive people. And I think the barbs that are thrown by a lot of these accusers, eventually they're going to have to turn the page and start to deal with some of their own kind of the splinter, the log in their own eye versus perceived splinters in others.
Tim, on gun legislation, a bipartisan group of senators has announced a framework deal on gun legislation. Do most Republicans at this point support some kind of action on gun laws? What are you finding out there?
Well, it's a good question, and honestly, it's a robust discussion, but because for those of us that have looked into these issues, not just kind of in the moments of tragedies like we've seen recently, but on an ongoing basis. Mental health questions really are the kind of the root question here, and I think it's really important for us to kind of have a level-headed conversation and try to have empirical data drive our conclusions and any policies that flow, rather than purely emotional and kind of reactive responses.
All right, Tim Head with Faith and Freedom Coalition. We wish you and your entire team well this weekend in Georgia.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, a warning shot over the U.S. playing a potentially dangerous game of catch-up while losing its technological edge to a competitive rival.
Welcome back. Former Pentagon officials are sounding the alarm over the dangers of America losing its status as the global leader in technology and innovation.
China's rapidly gaining ground, and as Caitlin Burke reports, they warn that if action isn't taken now, it could be too late.
There's a high-tech battle going on between the U.S. and China with much at stake. Now, experts are speaking out, concerned the U.S. isn't currently competing enough to come out on top.
We're getting behind in really the sectors in cyber and AI/ML that are the most important to win the next battle.
Nick Chalon filled the role as the first chief software officer of the Air Force and Space Force. He resigned last September over his concern regarding U.S. complacency.
You see China, for example, doing 200 hypersonic launches versus 10 in the United States. That's obviously very alarming. And then you hear the chairman of the Joint Staff say that it's only almost a Sputnik moment.
That's a sort of a clear example of risk-taking and speed that China's been taking, whereas the risk aversion that we have here to be able to experiment and try something new on the government side has been a real challenge.
Preston Dunlap is another high-tech defense official who basically followed Chalon's lead. Dunlap served as the inaugural chief architect officer of the Air Force and Space Force, and both men agree that to maintain technological dominance, the U.S. must act now.
When it comes to the compounded evolution of AI, there's a point where you can't physically catch up because we're dealing with a nation of 1.4 billion people, massive volume of data, and the more data you get in AI, the better the AI can learn and get better and stronger with time.
I do think now is the time to begin to pivot and change that curve, because it takes a while to turn an aircraft carrier. It takes a while to turn the technological pace that we have here in the nation.
Chalon estimates that if tremendous progress isn't made within the next 6 months, keeping up won't be the issue. The U.S. will face the challenge of catching up. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Do-it-yourself abortions in the pill form on the rise in America. When we come back, the often overlooked danger to women.
Well, after years of decline, the number of abortions in the United States rose in 2020 to about 1 in 5 pregnancies. And the preferred method that's grown in popularity comes in the form of 2 pills that can be ordered online in minutes, but can also be dangerous.
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, some are already looking to the future of the abortion battle in America. Both sides agree that the next fight will be over the pills known as RU-486. Heather Sells reports.
Abortion pills are used in more than 50% of all abortions, and if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, they will become the new battleground.
Self-managed abortions. Both medications are incredibly safe.
It's a big reason why activists are aggressively promoting the pills, also known as RU-486. One phrase you'll hear, self-managed abortion. They want women to use them at home.
We're seeing these articles pop up over and over again with how to do yourself abortions. These are dangerous.
Kristen Hawkins found out for herself how easy it can be to get these pills. She ordered them online in minutes last month in Wyoming. That's thanks to the Food and Drug Administration, which recently lifted the requirement for an in-person exam.
It's presented as it's just taking a pill. It's no big deal.
Tony McFadden says the abortion industry minimizes the risks in promoting the method. It's why she took the pills in high school.
Close to 2 months later, while I was in school, I began to feel excruciating pains. I just remember going home and for hours going to the bathroom, back to my bed, and just hoping the pain would pass.
While keeping her severe hemorrhaging a secret then, she's now telling her story to warn young women of the danger.
I was just not educated. I just didn't know. I didn't even know the term hemorrhaging.
FDA reporting shows abortion pills have led to the deaths of 24 women and severe reactions for more than 4,000. And those numbers are likely low because when complications happen, women often say they're miscarriages. Also, the CDC does not require abortion reporting.
We need a national abortion reporting law. We do not have good statistics on abortion, especially when we're talking about complications of abortion.
For now, pro-life strategists like Sue Liebel are working with states to put restrictions on abortion pills. More than 20 require a doctor to be present for a woman to receive them.
You can't make them illegal per se because it is an approved pharmaceutical through the Federal Food and Drug Administration. And so that's the irony, that's the rub.
Legal experts on both sides predict that rub will be the new focus of state legislation and litigation. Steve Aden, general counsel for Americans United for Life, says there's precedent for restricting the pills. The abortion industry argues that the FDA has tied the hands of the state, he told CBN News. But the fact is that the case law in this area already strongly suggests that states will have the power to regulate and even prohibit. Both sides are geared up for a fight that encompasses law, health and safety regulation, internet commerce, and what our culture says about unborn life. Heather Sells, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Heather. Still ahead, an Israeli company has found a way to help some adventurous foodies follow in the footsteps of John the Baptist. We explained next. Finally tonight, if you're looking for a natural protein source, the Bible might provide some inspiration, but maybe just for some people.
Yeah, for some. Take John the Baptist, the New Testament preacher, ate natural foods like wild honey and protein-rich locusts. And now an Israeli-based company has cultivated that technology into a new product line called Biblical Protein. Sourced from the banks of the Jordan River in Israel, Biblical Protein is the first commercial locust farm in the world, offering everything from protein shakes to energy bars. The kosher-approved insects are ground into a powder and added to your food for a boost of protein and essential nutrients. John, what do you think?
All I have to say is yum.
Would you try it?
Nope, I think I would pass.
Yeah.
I think I would give it. Well, what about you?
You know, I think I would pass unless I was convinced of some amazing health benefit.
And in need of protein.
Yeah, and desperate.
Yes. Well, thanks for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.